So according to the bastions of truth and honesty over at CNN, Bob Saget had COVID, therefore that's what caused his death. No, just kidding. He ended up getting fucking bludgeoned in the back of the dome. I know this story's been out here for a minute, and the more information that continues to roll out in regards to this, I just find it a little bit more interesting as time goes on. But as everybody knows, Bob Saget passed away a few weeks ago, okay? Rather, the announcement was February 9th, and apparently, yeah, he died January 9th. He's only 65 years old, and it didn't seem, and it wasn't made public if he had any health conditions that he was battling, so it just kind of seemingly came out of the blue, and nobody ever really had a bad thing to say about him. Everybody knew, if you knew his comedic side, okay, if you watched Half-Baked back in the day, or if you were in the know in the comedian circles, you knew that he was a very, very, very funny guy, a very dirty guy, but a very, very funny guy. And in the 1990s, you couldn't turn on a television screen without seeing his face. Remember, he had like 2 of the 3 biggest shows on television, okay? Full House and America's Funniest Home Videos. The dude was everywhere, so the news spread far and wide, and the outpouring of support and the good words, as you'd expect for anybody who passes away, obviously. Nobody would be shitting on him, but I wasn't going to do a video on it because it just seemed kind of fundamental and rather rudimentary. And it's like, okay, yeah, a big star unexpectedly dies, big sad. But then it came out recently that his cause of death was blunt force trauma to the back of his head. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And now cops are saying Bob Saget hit head on a hotel headboard. What the fuck is going on here? Full House co-star Candace Burr, like she knows, was she the one who banged his fucking dome piece off the back of that? Says there's still a lot of questions after doctors said his fatal skull fractures were consistent with being hit with a baseball bat or falling down the stairs. So this wasn't necessarily like just a fucking whack on the back of the head. He had, like, there was apparently like bruising on the front of his cranium, like his fucking eyes were busted, like blood vessels were busted in his eyes. Okay, there was bruising on the front of his head because the force that hit him in the back and fucking caused his death was so great that it just jumbled his fucking dome piece around. So what's going on here? What's really going on here? So see if we can get a clearer picture. Cops say the Bob Saget died after hitting the back of his head on his bed's headboard, despite doctors saying that his injuries were so severe that they looked like he had been hit with a baseball bat. How hard do you have to hit your head on a fucking headboard that would theoretically be padded like that? It would, and especially on the back of your head, like you could understand maybe a little bit more if it just went through his fucking forehead like that. Okay, he slipped, he was trying to take a better dick picture by standing on the top of his fucking night table and then just having the underglow of his bag in the shot, and he fell off and hit his head that way at severe velocity. It's like none of it really makes sense, especially if that was supposed to be what would end up being his final resting place, or the last place that he was alive. I'm sure he's probably not buried in the fucking hotel room. That would be a little bit odd. Saget was found dead at 65 of a brain bleed on January 9th in his hotel room at the Orlando Ritz-Carlton. His death was ruled an accident with no signs of foul play, even though it looked like he had been bludgeoned by a baseball bat. No signs of foul play. Sources told TMZ that the electronic front door lock of his hotel room shows no one else entered the room after him. Okay. It was only opened again the next afternoon when hotel staff found him dead. Okay, so they Spider-Man'd off the balcony. I'm not saying anybody killed him. I'm just saying there are questions here, just like Candace Burr is also saying. Police believed he most likely slammed his head on a wooden portion of the hotel headboard and was knocked unconscious, sources close to the investigation told TMZ on Wednesday. But his autopsy revealed that his injuries were so severe and suggest a much more serious accident. One analyst even compared them to injuries consistent of being hit with a baseball bat or falling 30 fucking feet. Holy shit. So this is like Albert Pujols or Jose Canseco swinging a baseball bat. Saget's family have since filed an injunction to prevent the release of further records about the tragedy. More on that in a moment, because I also find that a little bit, questionable. Just saying. Candace Cameron Burr. Being from Canada and knowing a bunch of hockey players, I see Bure as Bure, but it could be, I don't know. been a minute since I've watched Full House, probably about 30 years. Who was Saget's co-star on Full House and its reboot, Fuller House? Oh, right, that was around for a minute, and everybody else forget about that too. Said developments in the late actor's death raise a lot of questions and have led to a difficult past few weeks. Yeah, the grieving process should be going on, not the investigatory process. So yeah, according to the coroner's report or the doctor's report, something like that, he had a linear fracture of the base of the skull involving the right occipital bone and right temporal bone, subgaleal hemorrhage, underlying abrasion of the posterior scalp, bleed under the galeal aponeurosis level, subarachnoid hemorrhage, bleeding in the space that surrounds the brain between the arachnoid and pia mater, a subdural hematoma, bleeding in the space that surrounds the brain between the dura mater and the arachnoid, countercube concussions, okay, that would be from the force from the back, okay, the rocking of the brain and the matter that's inside there causing a concussion, or contusion, sorry, on the inside, involving the bilateral frontal lobes and the bilateral temporal lobes, injured tissues on the opposite side of the brain than the injury, which is common, okay? And that's why with a concussion, when you like smack your head on the ground or something, when you trip and you fall, that's why pain will end up manifesting in the front of your head, like you might end up getting a headache, even though you bang the back of your head. That's just what happens, okay? Inertia and all that kind of fun stuff. And finally, communicated fractures of the roofs of the orbits involving the bilateral frontal bone. Yeah, that was the bruising on the front of his eyes, which, yeah, just simply banging the head or banging the back of your head on a headboard. Bilateral, partial, preorbital, chromius, 2 black eyes. There you go, just finishing that off. So yeah, let's get to that injunction real quick, because I find this very interesting, okay? As much as you can with a celebrity that you didn't meet, didn't really know, and was out of your mind for quite a long time, but still, why would you be filing a bid to stop the pictures and just nobody asking questions? Like, I understand that you guys want to keep it private, and there's not a lot of, evidence to suggest that there was any foul play going on, especially with the electronic records from the door. And as I'm sure one could speculate, it's like, oh, okay, maybe it was Bob picked up a hooker and things ended up getting a little bit too rough and ended up getting his caved in by a pimp. It doesn't really seem like anything like that happened, but why no further investigations into this? Why enjoin releasing any more information? Family of recently deceased actor Bob Saget, well, it's been over a month at this point, how recent is it really, has sued authorities in Florida in a bid to stop them from releasing pictures, audio, and video from the investigation into Bob Saget's death. Releasing all of that evidence into the investigation. That's what's difficult to wrap my head around, my fully intact head around. Plaintiffs will suffer irreparable harm in the form of extreme mental pain, anguish, and emotional distress if more questions are asked, if defendants release the records in response to public records request, or otherwise disseminate the records for any other reason or purpose. The 10-page lawsuit filed in the Circuit Court of Orange County and obtained by the Times. Any photographs, videos, or audio recordings captured during the death investigation should be deemed confidential and exempt from disclosure under Florida law, Saget's family asserts. Additionally, no legitimate public interest would be served by the release of the records, they say. Yeah, it's not like I'm going to be doing any investigative journalism on this. I'm just saying, and there's probably some interested parties thinking that the information on this isn't really lining up. If a doctor said the evidence was consistent with somebody getting fucking whacked in the back of the head, and all you can come up with, oh, he slipped and fell and hit his head on the back of a very tall headboard. It's like, okay, I'm not entirely sure how tall Saget is, but unless he was like 9 feet tall and he ended up slipping and falling very awkwardly going into bed and hitting the back of his head on a headboard, which would, like, my headboard, you can kind of see it in the background just a little bit. About what, 5 feet tall? So if I slip and fell from the fact that I'm 6.5 feet tall, I fall back, hit my head. It's not going to be akin to a fucking American History X curb stomp. Might get a bruise. I might see stars for a second, but it's not going to be anything like that. Medical examiner's office said that it continues to offer our condolences to the family and loved ones of Robert Saget. At this time, we have no comment on the current or pending litigation involving the office. Saget died on January 9th. According to the autopsy, Saget died of blunt head trauma. Dr. Joseph Stefani, Orange County's chief medical examiner, said he believed Saget suffered an unwitnessed fall backwards and struck the posterior aspect of his head. The manner of death was ruled accidental. And, of course, Saget tested positive for COVID-19, which is the real killer in this one now, isn't it? But we can always take a coroner's, or rather a medical examiner's advice at face value. Oh, just take a look at George Floyd, right? Died of asphyxiation. Or enough fentanyl in the system to kill a horse. Anyways, with that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.